to The View from Abroad. I'm Teresa Norton, and this is the podcast where, we look back at how the world has changed and if we've changed along with it. And we do that by unpacking some newspaper columns that I wrote between 1993 and 2000 when I was living and working and raising a family in Hong Kong. Now, it's 3 decades since they were written, and it's kind of interesting to see what still feels relevant and what feels kind of out of step today. And to help me in this endeavor, my guest is Grace Wong-Folliet. Originally from Chicago, Grace built her career in Hong Kong, where she led communications, marketing, and PR for global brands like CNN and the Cartoon Network. And today she's an independent communications consultant, and she's living in Paris, helping organizations with their storytelling and events. Grace is also a wife and a mother of 2 sons, and she chose this column, which appeared in Hong Kong's South China Morning Post 3 decades ago. The Goodbye Boy. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but I found myself crying because Justin is leaving Hong Kong. Actually, I cried because my son Sam was crying because Justin is leaving Hong Kong forever. I can't remember which parent first warned me of this impossible for a 6-year-old to comprehend concept of leaving, but I do remember what they said in response to my telling of some childhood disappointment. Oh, you think that's tough? Wait till one of his friends leaves Hong Kong. Forever. We then commiserated over such things as transitory nature of this place, the difficulty of finding some place for the kids to ride bicycles, and the cavalier way in which antibiotics are prescribed. But last night, Sam didn't care about bikes or bronchitis. My best friend is leaving me, and he doesn't even care. He went on to describe how dismal the playground will seem without his buddy there to race against and play superheroes with and fend off bullies beside. I think it's the word forever that carries such impact with children. They know about summer holidays, spring break, and the like, but unless they've experienced a death in the family, nothing is forever. It is always just windows of time. When I leave the house, my daughter always checks to be sure I'll return, and I tell her that I'll always come back again. When my husband travels, it isn't forever, though some Sundays it does feel like it is. But kids are smarter than we ever give them credit for, though we try to comfort them with the notion that Jenna or Jeremy or Justin just might come back for a visit, or try to encourage them with the joys of foreign correspondence. They know. They know that time and distance doesn't make the heart grow fonder. They just make it easier to forget how nice it was to have that person right here. I was acutely aware, as I watched and listened to him, just how immediate and urgent life is when you're a kid. Nothing is ever eventually. It is, to quote the king, now or never. My mother used to say, you make the best decisions you can under pressure, and you're always under pressure. Of course, things leap from monumental importance to complete insignificance during the course of a cartoon, but there is very little gray area. I love it, him, her, or I despise it, him, her. Passions run high when you're under 8 years old. It seems the art of being noncommittal is something that comes with age. Anyway, I know my boy will be just fine in a week, maybe less. It's all part of growing up and all that crap. But I'll tell you something, I'm sure that he was just as intensely heartbroken for 15 minutes last night over the departure of his best buddy as he will be 15 years from now over a betrayal by some lover. He'll just get over this particular devastation a hell of a lot quicker. My feeble condolences were not terribly helpful, but I think I did one thing right. I let him cry himself to sleep. We parents spend so much time telling our kids to get on with things, hurry up and get dressed. All right, that's enough. You're okay. No more tears. And I think that mothers in particular are adept at distracting our children when things are painful. But we all need a good cry now and again. And Sam needed his last night. So I brought out a box of tissues and lay down next to him on the couch while he lamented the injustice of being left by his best friend. I've been living in this peculiar little city slash country for 12 years, and a number of my own friends have moved on. I was always sad to see them go, but never really devastated. Sam is right, though. When they hit the dusty trail, they left this mad life we live here, full stop. We can write, we can call, we can fax, but we can't ever again stand together, shoulder to shoulder, playing at superheroes and fending off the bullies. Welcome, Grace Wong-Folliet. It is so nice to have you here.
Hi, it's great to be with you. It's been a long
We
time since I saw you in person.
we saw each other in Paris, a little cafe in the Marais, right? And
hmm
then, but we met through Women in Media.
Yep, way back when in Hong Kong.
I was going through some emails, and it was like 2002 when I attended the first event, and
Oh my God.
right, we were in our teens.
Exactly.
It was a great organization. It was really had some fantastic women and great events. We had wonderful speakers.
We did.
The one that stood out in my mind as a theater person was the talk with playwright Henry Huang, M. Butterfly, and the
Oh,
Golden Child.
yes.
Remember?
Yeah, those were fun days.
Those were fun days. Well, listen, I mentioned in your intro that you're the mother of two boys. I guess they're kind of on their way to becoming young men now. How old are your
Oh
kids?
gosh, Teresa, I can't believe I'm the mother of two adult children. I mean, they're considered adults, right? 18 and 20, going on 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of thinking about that column, did you have any kind of a book that was sort of a guide for you when you were raising your kids?
Oh my gosh, I have a whole shelf of them. But from like baby whisperer when they're still in the womb, up through like 2 years old or something,
Yeah.
which was a great tome, to like raising boys, and then through the years I've collected a whole bunch of those type of books.
Well,
hmm
when I was growing up, of course, I was born in the 50s, right? So my mother had Dr. Smock, and
Oh,
I subscribed to Miriam Stoppard. But
hmm
I have to say, I didn't have that many books that were sort of guiding me through their growing wonder years and all of that. I got a lot of the best information from other mothers, talking to
true.
girlfriends, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I still remember like one of my girlfriends in Hong Kong. This was before I had kids, right? And she was just talking, and of course, that time it didn't resonate with me. But she's like, all these women, they think that it's important to be there when the kids are babies and we quit our jobs and everything. But you really need to be there when they're teenagers,
I
because then you need to know who they're hanging out with, where they're going, you know.
I had a musician friend who was in a band, and as he had a baby child, a boy, late in life, and all of the other band members had teenage kids.
Mhm.
And one of his fellow musicians said, "Bigger kids, bigger problems."
So true. So true.
Well, listen, um, I think that parenting trends change over time, right? That the things that the Dr. Spock book to Miriam Stoppard to all these other things change. And also I think parenting is different depending on the culture that you're in.
Mhm.
And I think my mother probably would have been quite open to having my older brother, cry things out. Although, there was a lot of that let me make you feel better stuff.
Mm.
How about in your family? When you were growing up, I don't know if you had brothers, but would your parents have been sort of let them cry it out?
I have a brother and I have a sister. I'm the eldest of three. Um, I think, my parents were a lot more hands off.
Right.
than we are, our generation of parents. You know, my parents were like, "You're the kids, you do your thing, we do our thing." I mean, they were also busy running a restaurant. It's like you do you and we do us.
Right. I like my family, there was a lot of affection, there was a lot of laughter. I got probably a little too much attention. Most of my friends are aware of the shortcomings that come as a result of that. But 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 the one of the things that I loved about living in Hong Kong was being exposed to different people from different backgrounds and different
Mm,
cultures. And
hmm
I had British friends who the kids had tea and then the
hmm
grown-ups had dinner together, had supper together. So it was
mm,
this idea that you could actually have dinner as adults, two people, and have the kids could have their dinner earlier. And I
mm.
thought that was fantastic. There was a point in time later when they got older when we would, we definitely had dinner together on Sundays, but we didn't have dinner all the time. When I was growing up, we had dinner together all the time. That was absolute.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, my parents had a Chinese restaurant, so it was sort of we just ate dinner and they were busy,
Yeah.
but we were in the same place. We ate at
Right.
the restaurant.
Right.
But we did have a lot of, on weekends we'd have meals together. And I always have tried to have meals with my kids, even today when they're home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. We don't necessarily replicate the ways that our parents raised us. I am sure that has an impact for sure,
Hmm
but it doesn't
Sure.
necessarily mean that it dictates the way that we do things as we go along. And I think that's probably a great relief to our own children to know that the things that we did that drove them crazy do not have to be things that they do to drive their own children nuts. Well, I also, in this story, of course, I'm talking about, Sam as a little fella
hmm
being just overwhelmed with grief and sadness that his friend was leaving. And I also didn't hide my tears from him.
hmm
There were a few things that happened that were, you know, overwhelmingly sad when he was little that happened, losing friends and things like that. And I let him see me cry. I didn't and let him comfort me. I can remember when he was a little guy, I was crying
mm
and he was
Oh,
patting me
so
on the
sweet.
shoulder. It wasn't one of those, it wasn't the Judy Garland story. I mean, it wasn't like he had to be the parent for me, but I consciously decided that it was okay on occasion for him to see that
Mm,
grown-ups have sadness and pain too.
hmm
I don't think he ever saw his father cry, but he did see that, and I kind of like to believe that that helped him. And I know he's a very nurturant person, and he's
hmm
very good at supporting other people.
Well, I mean, I am definitely the emotional side of the couple. So very much like you, my kids have seen me cry, although I don't do it in front of them all the time, when they were
No, no,
younger,
yeah,
right? But, I wouldn't hide my emotions.
yeah,
And my husband's definitely the more stoic one in front of them. And one of the things that um really I was thinking about when you said, we all need a good cry now and then. I'm like, well, I certainly do. And I have had those moments like you did with Sam, sitting there and just letting them cry it out, just sitting next to them. And I agree with your columnist. Like a lot of times we as parents try to fix things for our kids. I mean, it's sort of innate, like what's wrong? Okay, let's do this, let's do that. But sometimes we just need to let them feel.
yeah,
And, you know, I've let them do that
yeah,
because you just need to let the emotions out. And I don't know if it's a woman and male thing, but even like, when you're going through your own emotional stuff, whether it's a breakup or whatever, sometimes you just want to call a friend and just cry.
Yeah.
or you don't need them to solve the problem for you. So
Yeah.
it's the same with kids.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I mean, this idea that what I picked up on was emotions, not just
Mhm.
tears, not just sadness, but
Yeah.
this idea that we should be cultivating um, little people who will turn into big people who have access to a whole palette of emotions, that none of this stuff has to be stuffed.
Mhm.
I would like to believe that the notion boys don't cry is as universally out of date as men never make passes at girls who wear glasses, right?
Since we're both wearing glasses.
Yeah. I mean, I think the inference there is if smart women don't catch
Yeah.
the dude, right?
Mhm.
But while I do know that there's a lot more emphasis, particularly now, on men's mental well-being,
Mhm.
um, I don't know if that's how that is filtering down into parenting. Um,
Mm.
do you have any friends who have younger kids than we do? I mean, mine are older
Sure.
than yours, but is there ever any discussion about that, the mental wellness of boys and men?
Well, there's a lot of discussion about mental wellness overall, and particularly since COVID.
Yeah,
Uh, and as we all know now, like even the World Health Organization has called, mental health one of the big pandemics, actually,
yeah,
of our lifetimes. It's a huge issue. And we learned that through COVID, the younger generation, like kids and the elderly, really suffered the most.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it has to do with, particularly, we know now that with kids, like the brain's not fully formed until they're 25 or 26. And with the elderly, it's the isolation, but the kids as well. I mean, that screwed up a lot of people. The changes in how you socialize or don't socialize, right? So yeah, there's definitely a lot of talk about mental health. And I think at least, in certain cultures and societies where we have the benefit of therapy and, books that have come out and podcasts that have come out about mental health issues. Um, and I'd say there's more acceptance of people showing their emotions. I agree with that.
yeah,
I don't know about, yeah. And I think this generation of parents definitely embraces that more.
more aware of it. Yeah,
Mm. I don't know about more traditional cultures, though,
yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. It's very dependent on not just how you were raised or who you were raised by, but where you were raised. I mentioned in that column that, that grief that he was feeling and projecting ahead to when you would be a young man and a romance would end or something like that. And I thought, the key word there is being left. Really.
Mm,
And in relationships, whether you're leaving a place or whether you're leaving a husband or a relationship or a job, it always seems that the person who is doing the leaving
mhm,
has it better than the person who has been left.
mm, mhm.
And I don't know if that's true from an emotional standpoint or if it's more of like a status and who's got the power.
Well, the person leaving, I think, and I've been on both sides of the fence. I'm sure
Mm,
you have as
mm,
well. I mean, I remember, yeah, when I was on the leaving side, it's because I had a new country to go to, I had a new job to go to, I had, new possibilities ahead of me. And the person I left behind was like, they felt left. Like, well, I'm here. You're leaving this big hole in my life,
yeah,
and you're walking into all this new possibility. What am I supposed to do?
right. It's so funny you said whole because I had written down in my notes, it's about the hole that you leave in the other person's life. Now, in that
Mm,
column, I said, I'm sure that this will pass, and in a few weeks there will be other friends that, but we've all had people who have left. I've had my best friend in Hong Kong died when she was
mm,
just in her early 50s of
mhm.
colorectal cancer. And, um, like, how did I cope with the leaving of that leaving? I actually, I didn't go through a very deep grief. I felt more like gratitude
Mm,
for how close we'd been, how much time
mhm.
we'd had together, and how much we'd enjoyed our time together. The grief I felt was not for me, it was for her kids,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great attitude to have, looking back with gratitude. And that's why some people they have celebrations of someone's life rather than a funeral.
Right.
And I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. I wonder if you could do that in a relationship.
Yeah.
And well, I say that, that's kind of
Well,
like a
why
funny,
not?
why not? Right?
I mean, you can celebrate all the great moments that you had, the great things you got through the relationship, and not just look back on that part where the breakup happened.
Exactly. I think you need time. It doesn't,
Sure.
yeah, right. It's not like a
There's that pain
Velcro.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why not be able to apply that to actively try and invest in searching out what could you be happy about that came out
Mm,
of that relationship. But okay, so
yeah.
I'll take it to one other level here. What about applying that to a job that's left you? In other words, you've been fired from a job. That
Hmm.
is, I have only had one experience of that. I
Hmm.
only had one experience of that in my life, and I was shocked. I thought, "You're what?
Oh, yeah.
You're firing me? What are
Mm.
you, nuts?" That was my attitude. I didn't feel, and also the thing that was weird about it is the guy that fired me, he was the channel director. He started crying when he was,
Oh.
and so I was like comforting him and saying, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right." And then I walked out to get the ferry in Hong Kong, and I thought, what the hell just happened here? Why am I comforting this guy? Right? He just sacked me. So, but I wonder about that idea again of actively applying, like almost list making of what were the good things that came out of it.
I mean, I guess I've never been fired, but right, I've worked with people that were just nasty,
Yeah.
really nasty. And I wanted to fire them. But, I was the one working for them. This is in a consultancy. But, I got through it. And in the end, I got stronger and I learned new skills because of it.
Right. I think this idea of looking for what's positive doesn't eradicate the need for a good cry. I think get through the grief and pain of being fired, being left in a relationship, having somebody that you love either pass away or move away. Go through the sad part of that. But then if you could consciously go through a process of trying to almost inventory what was
Hmm.
great that came out of it, that might be, something positive to take away.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Look, we're going to take a break now. And then when we come back, I want to hear the true story from your own life that was unearthed by that column. Okay, we're back and we have a little infomercial break. And in addition to the work that you do developing and executing events, you're also the co-founder of Inspirelle. Am I saying that properly? I don't know. I don't know. Tell us a little bit about this nonprofit media platform that you helped develop.
Yes, it's Inspirelle. So, we created a name that's sort of a hybrid English, inspire, and L, like L for she, in French. So it's a nonprofit media platform, and it's a community association that created by women for women, particularly the English speaking international community in France. And we launched nearly 10 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating 10 years and our mission is inspiring, connecting, and empowering women with a French touch.
How lovely.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. Um, we created it because women like myself, and I met a whole bunch of women, English speaking. We live in France. We might speak a little bit of French, but it's always hard, as you've moved around as well, when you first arrive in a new country, just navigating like where to find things, especially if the language is hard to get through,
Mm.
right? I mean, French, not everybody arrives speaking French, and even when you learn it, it takes many years to speak it well,
Yeah.
right? So we created this as a resource for newcomers, but as well as, people who've lived here for a long time and just want a one-stop resource for all things that concern women and their families. So, we're here to help women tackle the challenges that they face, no matter what age they're at, what stage they're at in life here.
Wonderful. And it's Inspirelle. So INSPIRELLE.com.
Yes. So check it out, sign up for our free newsletter, and follow us on social media.
Fabulous. Okay, we are back, and I want to hear the true story that was unearthed as a result of either reading or listening to that column for you, Grace.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that um, you wrote about how we can always write, call, or fax. Well, that's definitely changed now. I know when I first moved to Hong Kong, this was like 1993, right? So I'm starting out my career, and I was writing aerograms back to family and friends. Do you remember those? People don't know what those are anymore.
Aerograms,
It's
are those like tissue paper blue things that folded up
Yes,
into an envelope and they came with airmail postage built in?
exactly. And they seal on themselves, right? They're pre-glued. I was writing airgrams. I would get a little table at the Peak Cafe because I was living like on a cot in my grandparents' living room.
Oh my gosh.
And I would write airgrams, and you can include like dried flowers or something like that, or little pictures. And, you know, when's the last time you got a snail mail? And I was thinking about, what you said, like in your column, like goodbyes aren't, I mean, the forever thing. Goodbyes aren't forever nowadays. I mean, with FaceTime, with WhatsApp, with, Zoom. And I mean, we learned this again through COVID. We stay connected through people, through the technology in ways that we never were able to before. I mean, back in the 90s, it was like either you write a letter or you make a long distance phone call, which costs a fortune by the
Ka-ching!
minute. And now it's free as long as you have internet, right? You can talk to people. Or even like when I was studying abroad in England, right? My junior year abroad, I stayed in a dorm in Sheffield, England, and for my family or friends to call me, it was a payphone in the bottom of the building, right? With hundreds of people sharing that same payphone.
It's like you
And
were in a
that,
cell block in a prison, right?
right? You have to book a time like weeks in advance and say, call me at this time and I'll be at the payphone. It's crazy, right? Now it's just like we take for granted how handy it is to have a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
faxing, right? And the thing with faxes
who
is that,
faxes now?
yeah, I mean, there are still things that say, and you can do this or you can fax it. That seems crazy to me. Plus, they disappear. You're right. They're like thermal.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what were the things? Do you remember telex machines? I'm older than you are. I was working as a secretary and an actor, and they had something called a telex machine, and the women who could use these things had hands like like bears, because the keys, you had to push them really hard
Oh,
because they were poking holes into a long, like a ticker tape.
oh
And
wow.
and it had its own special code that made it into language. And then you'd feed it into a machine, and on the other side it would come out, and that was instant messaging in those days.
Instant messaging. Well, everything's so instant now. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess my take is like technology has made it easier for us to stay in touch with people,
Hmm.
to feel connected with people, like whether it's just scanning people's Facebook. I mean, that's an upside. We can still feel connected to people no matter where we are, and we're all more globalized now. So people live like Hong Kong, Lisbon, Paris,
Yeah.
Chicago. But there is a downside to it, and that I've seen in my community, in my own life, is that people spend too much time on these screens and digital devices.
Yeah.
And it's changed how, getting back to your column, how people, kids and adults alike, deal with feelings and emotions.
Right.
It's a source of distraction, right?
Yeah.
Rather than feel your pain, numb it. I'm just
Yeah.
going to distract myself. You know what? That's too painful for me to feel or deal with right now.
Right.
I'm just going to turn on my YouTube or Netflix.
What you don't have is the touch. You don't
Mm,
have, you're telling me something and I'm holding your hand because I know it's hard for you, right?
mhm,
Or you're telling me you've told me something wonderful and I give you a big hug, right? None of that stuff happens when you're staring at your phone. So, this idea of being connected to people in a one-dimensional way
mhm.
is it's got to be an adjunct to some kind of socialization. Well, just to kind of wrap up this whole idea of 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 being able to feel what you feel and feel that safely. I hope that that's something that is a message um, that resonates with more people. As an adult, I assumed that everybody came from a house like I came from. And
Mhm,
as I grew up, I realized, no, there's all different kinds of ways to do family. But I think regardless of whether you come from a family that's it's lots of laughter and lots of hugs or not, it's important to be able to feel your feelings.
mhm,
And whether you get that support from a parent or whether you find it from somebody else's parents or
mhm.
from friends, make sure that you're getting the handheld and the hugs that you need, right?
Great message. I totally agree.
Thank you for joining me, Grace Wong-Folliet.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Inspirelle is INSPIRELLE.com. If you're new to Paris and you're a woman who would like to connect with other expatriate ladies who are equally searching for connection and a better understanding of their environment, that's the website to visit. Listen, I just want to say breathe all the time. Come up slowly. And no matter what kind of an emotional roller coaster you're on at the moment, whether you're on the highs or the lows, as my dear friend Geraldine said to me when I was worried about what was going to happen next, she'd say, yeah, well, but what if it's good? Like, share, comment if you've enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you next time.